It's October 2nd, 2023. Um, I'm watching the Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Um, it's another calendar year, and they're doing this Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month, which I thought they said it runs from September 15th to October 15th. So I'm watching this, and then I'm going to go under my flag, and I'm going to just speak on. I watched Tia Leone and Madam Secretary, and they mentioned something about unrecognized states. So, what I don't understand is why there's so much attention on the airwaves being paid um, to the unrecognized states. I'm in New York, where there is a recognized 48 states in the United States of America program. So, with our monetary system, and then there's outside territories. Why would they call, I think, unrecognized states is what they're called on that particular program. So I don't understand why there is so much like rally cries and why there's so much support paid to these unrecognized states that may have people residing here in New York. I have no way of verifying if any of them are legal or not. I'm not sure how Department of Homeland Security takes care of their vetting. But I'm just going to show what they have displayed on the television. For Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month. Celebrate the diverse cultures and communities across our... They keep waving other flags. Our area with inspiring stories about local artists, businesses, and role models. Watch all month long on Eyewitness News, Tiempo, and wherever you stream ABC7 New York. And then at the same time, earlier in the program, with the correct flag, this was showed.
These traffickers don't care about the public safety. They only care about the greed and the money that they're going to make. Even after 4 babies were poisoned and one died, they're continuing to work. They're continuing to push this poison throughout New York City. That shows you their deliberate, calculated treachery to push the poison throughout New York City. Again, this...
So within this "in God we trust" system, this is the only general that I know by face and name, which is General George Washington. It says United States of America. It also says Federal Reserve Note, and symbolically, and then this is the Hamilton. So that's the flag. Now, what concerns me also, I hear from the professionals at the U.S. level of, I guess that gentleman was at the DEA level. He was saying that there's poison inside New York City, and they don't care whether the traffickers don't care whether they're poisoning children or adults. Um, so I now have confirmation that it exists here in New York City, so it's plausible. Now, where I'm working at the moment is in the local food store. At the register, I can see the 3 names of the unrecognized at State Department. I think they're called unrecognized states, but on a globe, like when I was in elementary school and my son's in elementary school, or when he was in elementary school, they taught that they were countries. Different verbiage for different reasons. So anyhow, um so I can see what the scanner reads in the technology that they're using in, and I joked on security camera with some of the locals. They're like, I'm like, it's not rocket science. I was like, actually it is. I was like, but this is the easy part of the rocket science. I mean, like, whatever. trying to like dress up the cashier job at 45 because man, am I really making my dad proud. So anyhow, so there's the UPC and the database part of it and like computer engineering. Since my social engineer is just whatever. We're not gonna go into my distrust and dislike for all of this. Um, what I am concerned about, however, is I can see the labels on the food um, that at like an import export, I know how critically important the food is. But what concerns me is in supply chain where the food is being accepted from into, let's just say, my particular food store. What concerns me is herbicides and pesticides in an unrecognized state outside of the limits and borders and then are trucked into the interior of the United States of America, like our domestic states. What concerns me is at a consumption and an end user. I'm having problems with my health today. I mean, my face, my underneath here, I am so bloated. I don't know if it's lymphatic. I don't know if my tongue is swollen, but I can see it in my face. Like my jawline is no longer pronounced. And I'm having this metabolic swelling. My electrolytes are off. They just sent me to St. Francis Cancer Center for a 6-hour treatment of, they called it hydration, um, which seemed to help with some of the rigidity I was feeling in my lower extremities. At times, the soles of my feet are turning like a yellowish color, which I don't know if that's some kind of chemical reaction that my body's just not able to get rid of. And again, looking at vectors of possible contaminants based on my schooling, matriculated at local NCC with Ivy League, like Princeton level textbooks and lesson plans, but in a local NCC facility. Um, because I don't want to get into an academic like Laurelette, like get over yourselves. Um, and so here we are in, um, I'm concerned about regulations and the health of the food. I'm grateful that it arrives. I'm grateful for the sustenance. I'm grateful for the bounty that's within the four walls. Um, what I am concerned, however, is if there's unregulated herbicides, pesticides from outside fields that are then being carted in, and my internal medical staff doesn't, like, I don't know, is hitting some kind of bureaucracy or whatever, and they're not as efficient at keeping the local health and population as healthy as they need to be. I can see the population of shoppers along with the population of employees there. Um, Visually, I can see signs um, of like epidermal damage. I have on myself some sunspots that are coming out. They call them liver spots. The tops, like on the tops of my hands, I can see the skin is no longer. Um, it's it's holding like the epidermal layer, and like it's really hard to put into words because my education only goes so far, and then I rely on things like Madam Secretary for a portrayal of the words that they find acceptable. And then I look to, there's this show called Star Trek. Yesterday on the Voyager series, they had on Captain Janeway, and her crew. They were talking about photon, and the magneticism. They were talking about pure energy, which again is when they speak of a holodeck being like the outside space, and again, like I talk about it like interstellar space to interstitial space, and then like the pull on the cells and how they reproduce. I mean, that those are my personal words, but in this context of something that could be referenced, the holodeck being the outside sphere, um, and how the cellular, like specific to relative gravity, works on an itemized level of like an individual scale. I think somewhere in someone's science program, it's something about cosmology and astrological programming and timing. Um, so they were talking about something called Beowulf. They mentioned something about Freya. Um, and it was Beowulf and Freya, like at in at like a sub level of subscript level, because there's this Captain Janeway and Star Trek version that's going on at that time for storytelling, and then they enter the holodeck, and the characters and the cast inside the holodeck is functioning at a story level of Beowulf with Freya, and lords and warriors and things. But um, the ship's version, Captain Janeway's crew, that knows it's entering this program already knows the storyline before they enter. Again, when I go back to like chance encounters with a bartender, MVP to VIP, who asked me to some field trip that two of the locals brought me to. I imagine that's how it is. Um, and then there was like another night where I was invited to something with like a Jefferson kind of a thing. I mean, like, again, that's how it almost, I mean, to hold legalities at whatever they are, like, there's real serious things in the field that I need help with. And I just feel like I keep getting damaged and hurt. And like, there's real serious things afoot, and I don't know how to get to the appropriate help without sounding crazy, but I know that there are these things that they've put out into the public in a way of explaining things, that others follow and are socially acceptable, I suppose, like a Star Trek. I'm not like a Trekkie fan. I really don't. I haven't followed it. Now I'm starting to, only because I need the science verbiage in order to connect with what I have going on, like outside the window. Right now the sun's not up at its full height, so the sunlight coming in is not at where my hand disappears in the sunlight, but I've captured that on film before. And actually, in that episode, it mentions that, as well, in that Beowulf on uh, the the part of the series that speaks of Janeway and speaks of Voyager. I also saw they have this big thing going on right now with some young kid called Sam Bankman Fried. They had on a slide and they mentioned Voyager on that slide. And I'm like, now that's interesting. Um, and he has something to do with crypto, which I don't even. JC28, when he came to meet me in Starbucks, he mentioned crypto. He was the first one I ever heard of mention crypto ever. Um, and I asked him to explain. I'm like, what now? What is that exactly? And it was hard to follow along, like how that was even a thing, but here we are. Um, it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Catarusa. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies, broken. They're saying something with my phosphates are off at the moment. That's the words that they're using. Whether that's really what it is or not, I have no way of verifying, which is the scary part of living here in this, like, like there's so much unrecognized states, persons that joined in America, like especially like in New York. Like it gets really hard to discern like what's trustworthy, what's not. Um so I'm just trying to do the best I can, and I'm in that flag pattern at the moment. I took my son to school yesterday, and there's on a local, like on Oceana, like this is something like a car could drive down Oceana and verify. There are gigantic red circles with gold writing, which looks Chinese to me, on a house on the corner overlooking the school. I have no idea what it means, but it's not part of the 26 letter alphabet that we go off of here. Um, and so I just, I don't know what any of this means, and there's no communications whatsoever, which is the frightening part. But it's not, like it's not normal. I mean, we live in an area that has a 26 letter alphabet, and why there is any unrecognized state or countryman coming into New York and then trying to change that 26 letter acceptable alphabet in order to, I don't know what, but I see it a lot. There's a bunch of different alphabets that they're trying to pass off in New York, and I don't know why, and I don't know how they're getting away with it. I don't. I don't know what's the driving force. I don't know where my representatives are, not at Senate level, not at local level, not at Congress level. They have not done a very good job of keeping persons like myself in the loop or in the conversation at the level that I need to protect myself and my children from whatever the business dealings are. Um, Again, in the time frame that I've been here, it used to just be like there were sea merchants that brought import exports over, and then there was whatever supply chain does. Now, since I've been here, they expanded that, like, and I don't even know the level of fighting that goes on at sea merchant level, but then they upped that, and they almost like they made it now e-commerce, where everything's like electronically commerced, and it just looks like, it honestly looks like they were trying to break the bank. It looks like between the telephone company breaking up, it used to be an amazing monopoly that had local, regional, long distance, and international itemized billing. It looked neat and tight. It might have been expensive, but man, was it easy to follow the money and keep the persons using the technology safe. And there was some level of like feeling privileged to have that level of technology. Now it's like, I don't know, the locals just kind of expect it, and it's one bill, it's very messy. Um and I just feel like it's just become really dangerous. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Catarusa, Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies, broken.